Rice charged, Lamb looking to cash in. Rodgers wants 4 more years. Pollard and Spears indistinguishable. And Richardson's on a mission. Stand by for this week's top 5 fantasy headlines. Headline number 1, Rice charged. We have a starting point. On Wednesday, an arrest warrant was issued for Chiefs wide receiver Rashee Rice in connection to his involvement in a multi-vehicle crash in Dallas on March 30th. Rice, who posted a statement on his Instagram 4 days later saying he was cooperating with the investigation, now faces 8 charges in the case. 6 counts of collision involving bodily injury, 1 count of collision involving serious bodily injury, and 1 count of aggravated assault, felony. All of this puts him in the crosshairs of the NFL's personal conduct policy. As I first wrote in Monday's fantasy notebook, link in comments below, we as fantasy managers have an almost reflexive desire to gain leverage in the moment. But I've been around long enough to know cases like this can take strange turns. I've learned the best immediate action is simply staying on top of the shifting and often nuanced narratives. Fortunately, our colleagues at Football Guys, including Drew Davenport, a practicing defense attorney, are here to help us do that. I highly recommend following Drew on X at Drew Davenport FF for all his fantasy-related legal breakdowns. For now, even if Rice ultimately draws a 1 or 2 game suspension, Davenport believes this will not have a significant impact on the wideout's overall career. Why the optimism? Well, Rice has approached this as though he is genuinely remorseful. Drew contends this is important to both the NFL and the prosecutors handling the case in court. It's also possible Rice pleads down, the felony goes away, and the punishment is lighter. While the league usually waits for resolution of criminal cases before imposing discipline, the Chiefs could ask Rice to skip their offseason program. In 2019, the team and Tyreek Hill agreed the wideout would stay away from offseason workouts, while authorities were investigating a broken arm suffered by the wideout's son. Hill ultimately was not charged. Taking all this into account, our own Sigmund Bloom wrote in his This Week in NFL News on Thursday, link below, it might end up being a good time to buy Rice in dynasty leagues, but if the Chiefs go wide receiver in round 1, Rice's value will fall further. Bloom added, even when the Chiefs took McCole Hardman with their first pick in round 2 back in 2019, with Hill's future still in question, anyone who bought Hill during the dip was handsomely rewarded. Even if there's not a direct comparison here, there are lessons to be learned, and the most likely outcome to me is Rice having a long career with Patrick Mahomes as his quarterback. That last point is enough reason to keep me from pushing the panic button on this one. Headline number 2, Lamb wants to get paid. What's his route? What if I told you Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys are all in on the 2024 season? Well, if you're a Cowboys fan, you might have some choice words for me. While there's a lot of time between now and September, NFL Network has reported that Dak Prescott and the Cowboys are working with the understanding the quarterback will play out the final year of his current deal. It sets all of us up for a wild offseason next year with Prescott on a path toward free agency. But the cap issues that come from Dak's $55 million salary have more immediate implications. CeeDee Lamb is set to make just under $18 million in the final year of his rookie contract. Michael Gelkin of the Dallas Morning News reports the wideout is unlikely to participate in any of the voluntary workouts this spring. Makes sense. Most players in Lamb's position would at least skip voluntary sessions, but Gelkin suggests Lamb could hold out beyond that. While missing any mandatory sessions would result in fines, Lamb's only leverage here is denying his services. Remember, Lamb led the NFL with 135 catches last season. He racked up 1,749 yards and 12 touchdowns along the way. More indicative of his importance in Dallas, however, Prescott targeted Lamb 179 times last season. Every other Cowboys wide receiver drew a combined 182 targets. That number drops to 127 when you throw out Michael Gallup, who was released in March. Lamb wanting to become one of the highest paid receivers in the NFL, a distinction currently held by Hill in his $30 million annual salary, is understandable. For perspective, Hill signed that contract with Miami in 2022. The league's salary cap has since increased. The cap share equivalent of Hill's $30 million average in 2022 is $36.8 million today. That offers an indication of what players like Lamb, Minnesota's Justin Jefferson, and Cincy's Jamar Chase will be looking for on their next deals. For now, I'm not worrying about Lamb's 2024 availability, even with the possibility of a holdout if he doesn't get his extension. Lamb is wide receiver 2 on the 2024 Football Guys draft rankings. He's my wide receiver 1. We're drafting him at his ceiling as is, but I'm not dialing back on that this season. The real question is longer term. I'm on board with his current wide receiver 3 spot on our dynasty rankings. But with an open question at quarterback next year, a head coach who doesn't have great job security, and an impatient owner determined to return his team to Super Bowl glory, well, there will be plenty of fantasy managers who perceive the long-term outlook as being less than ideal, and that will create opportunities for those confident Lamb's talent will win out over his circumstances. Is this the kind of content you crave? Get the Football Guys Daily Update, the biggest stories in football, summarized, explained, and delivered straight to your inbox every day. Sign up and check it out. Unsubscribe anytime. Totally free. You'll find a link in the description below this video. While you're there, like, subscribe, comment. Appreciate your feedback. Headline number 3, 4 more years? Reflecting on what he called a wild year, Aaron Rodgers admitted he thought his career would be over in the immediate aftermath of a season-ending Achilles tear on September 11th. I was thinking, this is it. You don't come back from this injury, Rodgers said on the I Can Fly podcast, which was released this Tuesday. Looking back on it, Rodgers called his Jets debut, running onto the field carrying the American flag, one of the best moments of his career. And the injury moments later, the worst. Rodgers tried to return late in the season. He even practiced on a limited basis, but that plan was aborted when the Jets fell out of playoff contention. Now, nearly 7 months removed from surgery, the 4-time MVP is expected to participate in OTA practices this month, according to head coach Robert Saleh. And Rodgers has goals. They don't include being vice president of the United States, but the quarterback said last month he's hopefully can play 4 more years. Rodgers acknowledged that he'll require some good fortune, but the attention is noteworthy. While some outside the organization wonder if he'll ever get back to where he was in 2021, his last Pro Bowl, All-Pro, and MVP season, the Jets seem unconcerned. The best part for fantasy managers is we don't have to pay for the possible upside. With his current average draft position at quarterback 19 and 20 on best ball 10s and underdog, respectively, Rodgers is a tremendous value. He should be high on your list of potential quarterback 2s. In fact, his current QB 13 spot on our initial Football Guys draft rankings is, in my opinion, on the more likely end of Rodgers' range of possible outcomes. Don't be shy. Headline number 4, Pollard and Spears to form a dynamic duo in Tennessee. When the Titans signed Tony Pollard to a contract this offseason, fantasy managers were immediately concerned that he would be paired with second-year man Tyjae Spears this fall. That's not going to diminish after Tennessee's new coordinator, Nick Holt, suggested the 2 men are interchangeable, giving his offense an added layer of deception. We see it as a 1A, 1B, and they're both just going to play a ton and get a lot of carries, Holt said via NFL.com. So how concerned should we be? Well, Spears, working behind Derrick Henry last season, was plenty effective. He ran for 453 yards on 100 carries and added 385 yards on 52 catches. Meanwhile, as anybody who invested in him last season will tell you, Pollard's single season as Dallas's featured back was a disappointment. While he showed he can carry the load, Pollard's explosive plays diminished. His 22.8% breakaway rate was his lowest of his career. He has clearly been more efficient when sharing. According to football guy Zare Kansabedian, in 2022, 45% of Pollard's 186 rush attempts accounted for runs of 15 or more yards. Since 2020, only Breece Hall has hit that mark. That upside probably explains Pollard's running back 22 ADP in early best ball. Spears is available as running back 34. If this latest news depresses Pollard's price and both are still available at running back 3 level investments, I'll have plenty of shares of both. Headline number 5, Richardson's on a mission. Anthony Richardson was limited to just 4 games in 2023 because of injuries, including a right shoulder injury that resulted in season-ending surgery. The notion of not throwing for months was once a crushing reality for the quarterback. According to ESPN's Stephen Holder, that explains why Richardson can't get it up these days. I've never waited this long to get back to playing football, Richardson said. I'm just on a mission this year. The second-year man remains on a pitch count, roughly 40 or so throws per day, but his progress has all involved excited, even as team officials try to keep it all in check. Last month, not long after Richardson had resumed throwing, he visited Indy for a check-in with the team's training staff. As GM Chris Ballard, coach Shane Steichen, and coordinator Jim Bob Cooter watched Richardson throw, Holder reports they were stunned by what they saw. I was like, my God, Ballard said. I mean, you wouldn't know that he's still in rehab watching him play football. Clearly on track to be ready week 1, Richardson remains quarterback 9 on both the Football Guys 2024 draft and dynasty rankings. He's quarterback 8 in early underdog best balls and quarterback 6 on best ball 10s. Full disclosure for those unaware, if I'm not the engineer of the 2024 Richardson hype trade, I'm absolutely qualify as the conductor. And as such, given the current pricing, you'll not be surprised to hear me say all aboard. That's it for me, Bob Harris. Watch for my fantasy notebook every Monday morning, and I'll be right back here next week with more headlines and analysis to help you stay well ahead of the competition.